Good afternoon, good afternoon, good afternoon again, everyone. Pardon me. Welcome to another episode of Spilling Tea. I'm your host, Tiffany Daniels. We're going back to that horrible world known as the JRC. But before we do, the usual disclaimers. If you are unfamiliar with the Stop the Shocks campaign or the campaign against the troubled teen industry, you're going to find all the pertinent links right there in the description box. Please, in particular, take note of the article written by NeuroClastic, a small non for profit started by autistics for autistics. In it, they interviewed over 900 ABA professionals in regards to the JRC's so called behavior modification program. The Judge Rotenberg Educational Center doesn't want you to read that article so much. They threatened NeuroClastic with a defamation lawsuit if they did not remove it from the website. NeuroClastic refused, so you know the drill. Please read the article. Share on all your social media. Also included in there is NeuroClastic's public statement regards to the defamation lawsuit threat, as well as a link to their GoFundMe. We are crowdfunding just in case the JRC actually does see through with their threat. Trigger warning 1. When we discuss places like the Judge Rotenberg Educational Center or Agape Boarding School for Boys, you're going to hear vivid descriptions of and catch clips or surveillance footage of people with mental health issues and disabled people being tortured and abused. If you got young children present, please make sure to use the headphones. Trigger warning 2. This channel is marked not for kids for a reason. We use profanity on occasion and speak on dark subjects. If your child is 16 and younger and they're watching this, very obviously parental supervision is very much advised. So, where we left off. Further, JRC provided no information regarding clinical protocols, treatment plans, or behavior frequencies for the individuals after they left JRC. In other words, they gave them zero records of any kind, shape, or form in regards to the individuals who have left the JRC. So, how are we to determine the so called longevity of the quote unquote conditioning? And if that doesn't make you shudder, I don't know what will. Conditioning. Just call it brainwashing and call it good. Good God. It doesn't. It can't. Because it doesn't deal with the underlying issue from where the behavior is springing from. And as long as that goes continued undressed, that no matter how long we can mask, eventually the mask is going to crack. And then what happens then? Right? It's the mask cracks or autistic burnout comes in which the mask shatters into 1,000 pieces. It's usually one or the other and nothing in between. All right. Therefore, there is no longevity. There is no almost like we're a computer code that they can hack and then somehow fix, right? By just repeating their stupid crap and then shocking you. Ugh. Let's continue. At the Massachusetts hearing, Dr. Blinkush stated that the JRC has not systemically collected follow up data on individuals after they leave the JRC. Gee, I wonder why. Could it be perhaps the fact that they are no longer under the JRC or their parents' foot, and therefore they know if they ask, the kid's gonna tell the truth? Is that why they don't check up on them? Because maybe they're going to hear something that they don't want to hear? That's how I think it is. I think the reason why the JRC doesn't reach out to former students to prove longevity is because not a single person who has left that damn building who now has their own autonomy, they're not going to give the JRC what they want to hear. Let's put it that way. There are more Andre McCollins and Jennifer Masumbas out there because of the JRC. and they do not want them talking. That I can tell you. The FDA is not suggesting JRC necessarily must collect follow up data. However, such data are important to understanding the effects of ESD. So, if you are trying to prove a point that by using this sickening, insane device, it's going to condition us into so called better behaviors, the best way to do that, and how it's done in a traditional clinical study, is you'll start about 1 year after leaving, 5 years, 10, 15, 20, to be able to, to demonstrate longevity. And if you do that, there's some other protocols with the FDA has already been talking about as well. Has that person, since leaving JRC, entered into a new program? And if so, and if the behavior is still gone, how much is that because of using the electric shock collar for humans? Or is it that they are better responding to treatment that makes coherent sense? Right? There's no way to tell that because the JRC is, as usual, dropping the ball. I don't think they even know if the ball exists. Just just saying. Based on the scant information provided, the FDA is unable to determine, for example, whether behaviors worsened after leaving JRC or whether other non-aversive treatments are responsible for any success. So since they didn't do their homework, we cannot tell you whether or not those behavior came back with a vengeance or not. I can give you an educated guess, having worked in this field, that they got worse before they got better. Most of us who have been abused, the autistic traits get worse before they get better because now you're having to process all of that trauma on top of all of your other issues, which means they may actually become worse than previously. And then after that, and you get into a logical, coherent program that makes sense, and if you start getting better after that, we don't have that information because the JRC once again fails at homework just like they fail at life. Let's continue, shall we? Overall, it is difficult, if not impossible, to evaluate the effects of ESDs, much less draw any conclusions regarding ESD's effectiveness from fading data provided by the JRC for the GED without a standardized clinical assessment protocol. Thank you, baby Jesus. Say it again for the people in the back. In fact, would you like a bullhorn? I will give you a bullhorn. And I will then, I don't know, I'll find you a bully pulpit. I'll get you a box something. I need to read it again. It's so good, it must be fattening. Shall we? Let's read that again. Shots fired. Shots fired. Overall, it is difficult to, if not impossible, to evaluate the effectiveness of ESDs, much less draw any conclusions regarding ESD effectiveness from fading data provided by JRC for the GED without a standardized clinical assessment protocol. In other words, the JRC's bastardized version of the full functional behavioral assessment need not apply here. Their bastardized version of it does not meet the current criteria in regards to protocols, all right? You need a real, as standardized across the United States, full functional behavioral assessment that is done. Point blank, bar none, period, bye bye, see you later. I love it. Tell them again. All right. specific behaviors targeted for criteria accounting behaviors, frequency, duration of data collection, who determined a behavior to be an SIB or AB, who recorded the data, and the medical training or qualifications to evaluate patients of those recording data. Boom! Is the person who is doing this study actually qualified to be able to do so? See, you gotta ask these questions because we already know that the JRC a lot of times don't have official, like, medical. We're not talking nurse practitioners here. We're talking the bottom of the totem pole guys that are there the majority of the time. And if they're the ones who are collecting the data, I hate to say it, but it's not gonna fly. All right. Number two, controlling for adequately documenting the formulation, application, and effects of other behavioral intervention components that were applied according to the JRC's data. In other words, what other types of treatment programs are going on that the consumer is a part of? And are we able to determine whether the change is because of the other treatment programs or the GED? Well, without the JRC providing detailed information, we have no way of finding that out, right? Makes sense to me. And number three, well documented follow up to determine whether behaviors worsened after ESD use discontinued at JRC or after leaving JRC. In other words, can we determine from the information in that study that the JRC submitted that even after they've been off the device and they left the JRC if the behavior came back or not, because the JRC refuses to do its homework. We also do not know whether or not after they got off the device and are no longer at the JRC, if the behaviors didn't actually worsen. Because it's the fun thing about those of us who are autistic, also have an unhealthy helping of PTSD. When our PTSD kicks up, so does the not so fun parts of our autistic diagnosis. So you might see quote unquote behaviors become far worse than ever they were previously, whether it's an increase in frequency or whether it's an increase in aggression, whether it's all of the above. We don't know that because the JRC is not doing their damn homework. And if it did worsen and then get better once they got in a treatment program, you see, we don't have these parameters from the JRC. We only have a very small time slot for the data that they obtained. And we can't even be convinced that that data is accurate because when you're doing a clinical study, it cannot be the man whose ass is on the line to be the one to conduct the study. That's not how this shit works. But, anyways, let's get it finished up, shall we? I mean, that pretty much says it all right there, right? The JRC, for God knows what reason, is making us tear these questions apart one by one and address them over and over and over again. I feel a very strong urge to send all of them a bottle of bourbon in compensation for having to deal with this idiocy for like almost over a decade now. You know? But anyways, we're going to go ahead and close out on that, folks. We don't get very many views on this channel. The few we do tend to get removed from time to time. So, folks, you know the drill. If you could, please don't forget to hit the like button, hit subscribe. Don't forget to hit those comments. I appreciate your time this afternoon. As always, folks, we here at Spilling Tea do hope you have a good one. I'll see you again here in a few minutes. Bye bye now.